I thought that was part of the podcast.
No, and we're live now. What's
Okay.
going on, Pete Sarni?
How you doing? Nate, how's it going?
Good.
Good to see you, man.
Likewise, it's good talking to you. Good seeing you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Been a long time.
Oh, it's been a while. We were just saying at least 6 or 7 years since we've had the chance to speak
Right.
in person or at least face to face. Um, I wanted to start this off like by going way back. I know you grew up in New York, right?
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York.
In Brooklyn, New York. So what was Brooklyn like back in the day when you grew up? And what are some of the things that like you love about it or miss about it?
Brooklyn was awesome. I mean, it was a neighborhood, a true sense of a neighborhood where it was, city block, avenue blocks. And, there were always people around. You always had a friend to play with, friends, multiple friends to play with. And, don't forget, I'm born in 1958. So I'm talking about I'm playing on the block in the early 60s. And, people watched out for each other. You could go anywhere you wanted to. You weren't afraid to be out playing outside. Your parents weren't afraid to have you playing outside. And it was just a great place. And the funny part about it is, I went to the Catholic school in the neighborhood. And, those people that I met in the first grade, I'm still friends with today. I still go
Wow.
out quarterly with a couple of close friends of mine. Actually, a girl that's a girl. She's a 67-year-old woman at this point. Is one of my clients in our training. So
Wow, in Jersey.
in Jersey, yeah, yeah. So she's one of my clients, and so I get to see her on a regular basis, which is always nice. And we've had countless amounts of reunion. And it's a grammar school, remember, first through eighth grade. And people will say, what are you doing going through a grammar school reunion? Because usually it's a high school or college reunion or whatever. But for us, that was, I don't know, it was home. It was home. And you could always go back home. And the people there, basically, for the most part, same values, wound up fairly successful in their own right. And it's just a good place to grow up. And we had a teenage club there. When we got out of grammar school, we had a teenage club, so we met. We had officers. I was actually president of the teenage club a couple of years, and which is funny because I have a very limited skill set. I always say, right? But one of the skill sets I think I do have is leadership. For whatever reason, I have no freaking idea why anybody would ever listen to me, but they do. And that's why I thought I was able to coach well, to be the leader of this teenage club organization, to be the head partner on the floor of a Wall Street trade firm on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. And now, as I enter into my later years, I'm not tasked with managing, but I still can give my input as to what I think when asked. I don't want to overstep my bounds. But Brooklyn was just a great place. Unfortunately, you go back, and things are always better looking back. If you go back, I'm sure when you in 30 or 40 years, you go back to Heightstown, right? Not Heightstown. Well, you went to school in Heightstown, but if you go back
Yeah, Heightstown,
to
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt, you're going to see that things are different, but likely it's probably the same. But in
Yeah,
your mind, it's different.
it's already getting different. Roosevelt, not so much, other than the deli's been closed for the past 10 years.
That's tough.
Uh, but yeah, what was the neighborhood like? Like, were all neighborhoods in Brooklyn very ethnically divided? Did you grow up
Very
in like an Italian neighborhood?
It's very ethnic. So we were all Italian. I mean, some Irish, but the neighborhoods in Brooklyn were very ethnic. We grew up in an Italian neighborhood, so much so that. But if you went down to, if you went down to, now I say miles. There's no miles there. You go down a few blocks. It felt like miles, but really everything is, in Jersey terms, relatively close. You go down, you find a Swedish neighborhood. There's a Chinese neighborhood. If you go in, you go further into East New York, which is part of Brooklyn, Crown Heights, Canarsie, black neighborhoods. So you're always going through. If you went through different neighborhoods, so much so that when GPS first came out, now this my daughters always tell me that this was a little racist, but when you, I said when you have GPS, when it drives through a certain neighborhood that could be, cordoned off, it would know the parameters. The accent of the instructor would change.
Really?
I know, not a good idea. But tell you the truth though, right? What is it now? You can make it any voice you want right now, right? Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
That's funny.
But
So like in your neighborhood, your accent would be on the GPS, and then you go one over, and it's like Denzel Washington.
No, you get to the right, go to the corner, you make a right. All right, you hear what I'm saying? Make a right. That's what I mean. And then you would get maybe Denzel on there, speaking the way he does, and in the Chinese neighborhoods or whatever. But we always got along. There was never tension. There was some tension early on when there was a local high school. I wound up going to a high school, believe it or not, in getting on a subway and going to Brooklyn Tech, which was a higher level school. It was a public school, but you had a test to get in. And that wound up being in a tough neighborhood. It was Fort Greene neighborhood. If you know where the Barclays Center is, that's kind of right where it is right now, in that neighborhood there, which is a better neighborhood right now. But back then, you go in there, it was hand-to-hand combat to get to the school. It was rough. And actually a friend of mine still credits me with saving his life one time because you had to stick up for each other. And we were on the subway platform. Some guy was trying to hassle him. I just stepped in and squelched the whole thing. But in our neighborhood, there was a high school where they started busing. Right, busing kids from other neighborhoods into the neighborhood school. Now, of course, I'm 10. I have no part in this, just so you know. But when you have a specific neighborhood, people hate change, as you know. People hate change, but it worked out. It worked out over time. There was some ugly days, but it did work out over time. So, and people are people, as you know. I don't know.
And back then, you guys were still fist fighting, right? Just scrapping it out.
There's no weapons at all. There's all this right here.
Yeah,
right there. But again, no reason to fight over that. That's the stupid thing to fight over. It's really probably little things that are smart to fight over, but that was a stupid thing to fight over. But I'm glad that the neighborhood got past that.
Were there ever like West Side Story type situations where like you fall in love with a Puerto Rican girl or where people are crossing the neighborhood boundary in romantic ways and there's
not me personally, but it always depended on who the guy was. It always comes down to the guy. So the guy that we knew was an awesome basketball player, walks into the gym with his black girlfriend. Right? It's a white neighborhood black girlfriend. Nobody said no, nobody thought no, because he was awesome. If he was a shithead, then it'd be a whole different story.
It would be a problem.
Right. So it all depends on how you carry yourself. It's funny. I had have a client that's a brain injury client. So look, she has issues walking, talking, the whole thing. And I'm always constantly trying to help her and say, look, I want you to walk into a situation proud and walk in, because if you carry yourself well, people will respect you. If you don't carry yourself, the affect of yourself, people won't respect you. And I think the same thing applied to with the situation I just talked about. This guy was so well respected, probably because of his basketball playing, but whatever reason back then, he got a pass, if you would, on that. I don't want to sound like you need a pass for that, but it is what it is. And those are the questions you're asking. So, yeah,
absolutely. It's a difficult subject, but it's interesting to hear, stories from the past and what was the reality, or what is your memory like, and what do you hear about,
What's funny, I'm glad you asked me about this, because I haven't thought about this in such a long time. We came from an Italian white neighborhood, and like I said, the first time I knew a black person really was when I got to high school. Right, and like I said, I took a subway to high school, and those kids came from all over the city. It was Brooklyn Tech, but you can subway in from Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan. You can find your way there. Bronx, and that's the first time I really even knew a black man or black kid, and also Asians. There were a lot of Asians in those specialized schools. And then you're 14 years old and you finally realize these kids got the same fucking problems I got. They're the same, they have the same shit going on in their lives as I do. They just live in a different neighborhood. That's all. And
Yeah.
that's it. So, and that was probably, aside from that being a great education, which I really never went to college, that really was my college because it was really just a solid. It was an awakening and an education in and of itself to be with so many different people. Because I could have easily went to the, well, if I would have went to the public school, it would have been bussed in. I could have went to a local Catholic school, where it would have been all white Irish Catholic, and this was by accident, not the intended purpose, but it was a great life, I'd say, changing move to make that move. I never really thought about it this way. I appreciate you asking me this.
No, absolutely. One of the things I'm always grateful for of how I grew up. I grew up before Roosevelt on Witherspoon Lane in Princeton, New Jersey, and it was like the only lower middle class poor neighborhood in Princeton. It's not very big,
Right.
but my neighbors were black, white, Guatemalan, Haitian, and throughout life that's helped me to be around different people and have an understanding like we're all just people, we, as corny as it sounds, when you grow up like that, it's helpful, I think.
It's not corny though. It is not corny. It really, sometimes you need it thrust right in your face. Like I'm saying, these guys are struggling with their schoolwork, they're struggling with girls, they're struggling with their fucking shoes that day. It's the same. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. And then also, being involved in basketball helped a lot as well.
You mentioned having like leadership qualities. Was that something that your parents or your neighborhood instilled in you, like to carry yourself with pride, because I get the reference to the hooper, like the hooper is a confident man, but
Yeah.
I was a hooper in high school and I really didn't have much confidence beyond the basketball court. It didn't, I had enough, like, I carried myself well enough that no one really fucked with me,
Right. Yeah.
but I wasn't confident in who I was or in myself.
You had to be tough. You had to be tough in the neighborhood, but I don't know. Again, I think we all have great. We have. I say I have a limited skill set, but we all have certain skills. The things that you can do, I certainly can, and probably the things I can do, you can't. And that's what really makes the whole world go round. And I kind of just got thrust into this leadership role. Like I said, I was, we had that teenage club, and I was the head of one committee. Then I ran for the presidency and the president, and I won. And I was like, all right, I can handle this. And then I was a young person in my first couple of jobs, being the assistant manager of a mailroom for ABC, and learned some tough lessons. If I didn't, because you don't know everything, and I still don't know everything. You're not treating somebody very well, and they call you out on it. You learn that, and that stuck with me. And then I worked at a ladies' department store in the UPS section, and the manager there, who happened to be a black man, was really the best manager that I ever worked for. He was just so calm in his demeanor. He listened. He got work done. There was a problem, he talked to you. And he got the most he could out of the staff. I mean, I always like to work, so not a problem usually, but he taught me a lot about managing, and then I just went on from there. Captain of a softball team for whatever reason, not the best player, right? Basketball coach, not the best player. You've seen me, right? Not the best player. So
I've never seen you play.
there you go. That's my secret. I never actually play. You ever see one of my daughters say, you ever see your dad take a shot during the practice? He'll demonstrate the whole thing, and he'll just go like this, and then he'll hand the ball back up. That's the secret. Don't ever
I
look.
always find that interesting, like between being a player and a coach, right? Because some players can't coach at all, and
Right.
some coaches
Can't
played,
play.
but maybe they can't, or they didn't play that well, right? They didn't
Yeah.
play at like a really high level.
Right.
So that's always an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. Well, not like you. I hope your people know, and I'm going to tell them that Nate was a great player. Nate was a great
Appreciate
player.
it.
You remember the championship game? I want you to know, I have the tape someplace. You hit a couple of bombs in that game that weren't 3-pointers back then. It was just two. I remember we won by 2 on that last 20-second bucket by Ronnie.
Yeah.
Ronnie hit a bucket with 20 seconds left, but really it would have been a whole lot different if they would have counted those twos as threes. You hit a couple.
They weren't 3-pointers back then?
No, you hit a couple of bombs. They didn't have them back then.
Well, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Add 2 points to my stats.
No. And you had the 1-4 play in that game where we set everybody down the baseline and you spun in half.
Yeah. I do actually remember that. That was a long time ago.
I want everybody on the Nate Laws podcast to know that this kid could play. No doubt.
Thank you.
And,
I appreciate it.
And we didn't play him at the point the whole year until I believe the last regular season game, halfway through the last regular season game, or the first game of the playoffs. Because I was trying to get you shots on the wing, and Mike, my son, and also another guy that I would show films to. That was a college player one time. Because what are you doing with this kid? You. I go, I'm just trying to get him shots on the wing. He goes, just give him the fucking ball. Give him the ball. So we moved Matt over to the wing. We put you on top, and that allowed you to go 1-4. So
Good times. These days my knees they're not doing so well. So I haven't hit the court in quite a while.
Did you have injuries or no?
Yeah, I have like a tear in my right meniscus, and my left meniscus is damaged but not torn.
From playing or dancing?
I believe from riding a bike taxi in the streets of New Orleans for like 5 years. And then the left one I think is from playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when was the last time you shot a ball?
The last time I hooped was about 6 months ago.
Wow,
I've been doing plasma infusions in my knees. I think it's working well, but it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah.
The pain sort of comes and goes, so it's not like a daily thing.
How's the run down? How's the run down there?
What's that?
How's the run down there? Do you get a good run down there or no?
Mexico City basketball, it's a mixed bag. There's a decent like expat game in one neighborhood. That's a pretty good pickup game. And you can find some hoopers, but there's a lot of like strange rules you have to get used to. A lot of like unnecessary contact, and what I realized hooping here is how good the competition just of the general populace in New Jersey, New York is. When I went back and played at like the Heightstown alumni game, it's like these kids can play, you know. Right. This is a high level of basketball, even though it's not like St. Benedict's or St. Patrick's. We know basketball in Jersey, and we teach it, and we train kids well. And here in Mexico, that's it's not the case on a large scale. It's more soccer.
Yeah. Oh, soccer. Yeah. But did you play soccer at all? I felt like you.
I played until I was 8 or 9. I was really good. I was on a travel team. I remember getting a hat trick, and then I started playing basketball and just realizing like, oh, you can score every time. Right. Like I don't want to play this game where you score maybe once a game.
Right. Maybe.
It's like maybe a final score is like 1-2.
Yeah.
It wasn't for me. But I recently went to a pro game here in Mexico, and I'm looking at the players. I'm like, that guy's like 5'8". I'm like, I think I was built to play this game.
Yeah. The
You
soccer
know?
game. Yeah, soccer game.
Yeah, I wasn't built to play basketball.
Well, thankfully for us, you picked basketball at that point in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
No, I love it.
we appreciate that.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Nathaniel Costa, and I'm the host of the Talk to People podcast. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast, please give it a like, hit subscribe, share it with your friends. And if you really want to support, check out my first book, The Renaissance Man Project, a search for meaning through martial arts, poetry, music, dance, philosophy, and art. The link will be in the description. Now let's get back to the podcast. Yeah. So hey, how did you so how'd you go from just studying at Brooklyn Tech? You said you didn't go to college.
I went for literally 6 weeks, and I went to CUNY College in the city. It's City University of New York. So they have different branches. There's I can't remember half the names, but I was
CUNY Hunter.
I went to John Jay.
Okay.
So it was like criminal justice. But I went for 6 weeks. It just wasn't for me. I was taking 12 credits, believe it or not, and I only went for 6 weeks, and I wound up getting 9 of them. Ironically, the only credits I didn't get were the 3 credits for phys ed. Which is stupid, right? I just didn't go for the physical, and I didn't want to go. Then I got 3 credits later on with introduction to film production, because I was working at ABC, and the technical director of one of the soap operas there, he liked me. He said, "You want to get involved with this business?" I said, "Yeah." Well, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at the time, so I said, "Yeah, sure. I want to get involved in a business." He said, "Take this class, Introduction to Film Production." So they broke us into 4 groups of 4, and we're supposed to, it's the old-fashioned film camera. We're supposed to learn how to use that, and we had to make a movie and then produce it. So nobody wanted to be in the film. So I was in the film. So
the opposite of kids these days.
Right, exactly. Exactly. You're right. Nobody wanted to be. So I learned how to do. I never learned how to use the camera, nothing. I was the actor in the film, which, by the way, I didn't smoke cigarettes at the time, and the character smoked. I'm like, whatever. I mean, I did smoke a couple of cigarettes in my life. We always used to sneak behind the in the park and bum a cigarette, whatever, and share it. Stupid shit as a kid, but I didn't smoke on a regular basis. And in the movie, the character smoked. So now, of course, for continuity's sake, cut. So that actually started me smoking for 10 years after that.
That's how you got addicted to smoking?
Yeah, because the next day, there's a cigarette there. My girlfriend, now wife for 45 years, still smokes. But she had a pack of cigarettes. I said, "Oh, whatever. Okay, I took a cigarette." And that's just the way it goes. But also, that's the way it ended for me, too. I just said, 10 years, that's it. Guy said to me...
So you only smoked from like your 20s to 30s?
20 to 30.
Okay.
That's it. And, I will enjoy an occasional cigar from now on again, but that's a whole different another story. I'm an old Italian guy.
Yeah, you got to live a little.
Yeah.
So how did you get onto Wall Street? What was that like?
So I was in the ladies' department store. Mom would tell her it's an old-fashioned store. They don't exist anymore. Then I went to ABC. These are all jobs, believe it or not, Nate. You could just show up in the building, go to the personnel department, not human resources, personnel, fill out an application, and get an interview that day. And they would decide, yes or no on you. So I got lucky. I went to the ABC. I got the job. I stayed there for a couple of years. And then I got a little bit of help getting down onto my girlfriend, was working at Solomon Brothers, which is a big brokerage firm, big investment banking firm. And so I went down there, just like I said, walked into personnel, filled out an application, and they hired me for like uh, this overnight job. Stayed there for a while, got a little help, got to a different company, Bear Stearns. And then a longtime friend of mine worked on the Florida Stock Exchange. My wife worked on the Florida Stock Exchange, and he got me down there. And then, the first 3 years, Nate, I got to be honest with you, I didn't think I was going to make it there. Well, actually, the first 5 minutes, I didn't think I was going to make it there. But the first 3 years wasn't good. I wasn't the man that you knew then and know today. It was kind of like I wasn't taking it seriously enough, taking my career, my life seriously enough. And we were about to have a baby, and I got laid off from that first job down there. So I got lucky. I managed to. This is another fun, crazy story. I got laid off, and they gave me like a month to find a job. Never told my wife that I got laid off. I'm talking to one of my friends down there. He goes, I'm supposed to take this job at this other company. He goes, I'm not going to take it. He goes, go over there and tell him Mike's not going to take the job. You should hire me. You should hire me. That's exactly what I did. Wow. And they hired me that day. And I worked there for a year. And then I got lucky. I got a little bit of help. And I wound up at this one company. And I'm thinking, I think this might be the end of the road with this business, And so I had worked in the booth answering phones on the first job, and I was out at the post. If you ever seen a picture of the stock exchange, they had like those posts in the middle of the floor. And I was out at the post. So it was two different jobs. It was the order generation and the order completion on the post. So it was two different things I got to see. Not realizing it, that I was taking in this information, and I needed to. What happened was they put me with this girl, right? The market opened at 10 o'clock. It was like 5 minutes after 10. She goes, all right, I'm going out to smoke a cigarette. She goes, watch the phones. This is my first day on the job. I said, all right, I'll do it. I'll try. I didn't answer the phone. And I knew what the hell I was doing, because I had seen the action there, and I seen the action there, and all of a sudden it just clicked.
So you were absorbing different types of information, and it came together.
And it just clicked on that first phone call. It was like, boom, okay, shit, that's what this is all about. Boom, wrote the order down, gave it to the broker, he executed, gave me the information. I put the information back upstairs. I knew exactly what he was talking about, and it was like, shit, I got this. So the company decides they're going to open up this new booth, right? This new way of doing business in this booth. And they put these two brokers, I was a clerk, they put these two brokers in charge of this booth. I didn't know these guys. They asked me to come in and set the booth up any way I wanted. I said to myself, is there any way to short this company? Because what shorting means, like
absolutely.
Like playing the don't pass line. These fucking guys want me to come in there. Like I'm barely surviving here. So I go in there, I set it up, and these guys were on the ball, and I was on the ball because it just clicked for me. And those guys, I still credit to this day, really. Matter of fact, there was a Facebook post, who's your favorite guy on the New York Stock Exchange? So everybody giving different names. And I mentioned the guy that got me down to the floor originally, and these two guys who changed the direction of my life by having faith in me to do the job that nobody else thought I could do. Even me didn't think I could do it.
What was it like? I'm sorry to cut you off, but what was the energy like then on the floor?
Unbelievable, man. You would walk in the lobby. Now remember, this is pre 9/11. This is 1980. When I first started down there. So you'd walk in the front door at 11 Wall. They're kind of flimsy doors, between the lobby and the trading floor. You push that door open. It was palpable. It was like an explosion happening, rumbling, energy. You could feel it. It was incredible, the amount of energy going on, because we did everything with open outcry. Everything was open outcry. Everything was verbal. Everything was handwritten. There's papers flying all over the place, papers all over the floor, and it was a constant buzz because everything had to be traded verbally for the most part. The machine orders were just starting, so there was no, just quickly into the computer and get executed, whatever. None of that. You had a 100-share order. You had to go out there and buy or sell a 100-share order, and it had to be a verbal. So there's 6,000 people on the floor talking at the same time. The amount of energy and the speed of which you had to get stuff done added to that energy. There's no running, but you could move fast.
You could walk fast, power walk.
You could walk fast, and there were people running slips of papers all over the floor to go to here, to go to there. The energy was incredible, and you had to be accurate in all that, all that stuff. Hundreds of thousands of share orders, where a mistake. Now remember, we dealt with eighths back then. Like that the minimum change is a penny now. On a stock, it's a penny. It used to be eighths per dollar. So that's a 12.5-cent move. So on a 10,000 share order, you make a mistake on an eighth of a dollar, it's $1,250. Make a mistake on 100,000 share order for an eighth of a dollar, which is the minimum. That's $12,500. There's no.
Was there ever a day where you fucked up on something?
Oh yeah, definitely. We also had positive errors too. But anytime something happened, the SEC would come in and kind of like, all right, this thing happened, but we got to make sure, and it's clear that it was an accident, but we got to make sure that clearly it wasn't a deliberate mistake in order to try to trade to make some money on this trade. But I lost. I got a machine order one time to sell 100,000 shares of Coca-Cola. Yeah, sell 100,000 shares of Coca-Cola. We didn't get machine orders like that. I wouldn't execute the order because I knew it was wrong. I called upstairs. I go, I got this order here. It cannot be right. They checked with one guy. They checked with another guy. I checked with a few guys. My manager wasn't around. Remember, speed is of essence. So if I'm holding on to this 100,000 share order to sell, and the stock trades down $2, I could be on the hook for prices up $2 on 100,000 shares. That's a lot of dough. So I checked a million ways to Sunday, and nobody knew the answer, and they thought you got to execute it. I sold 100,000 shares. Should have been 100 shares of stock.
Wait, what was the last part?
Should have been 100 shares.
Oh.
So I oversold.
Couple extra zeros.
I oversold 99,900 shares of stock. And now we have to buy it back.
Okay, you have to buy it back. And if the price goes up, then you're in the hole.
Right, if you lose $1 on it, you lose 100 grand.
Yeah.
I forget.
So how'd you go about buying it back? Did you end up making it back?
Of course, like I said, I checked it a million ways to Sunday, but my boss, of course, blamed me for it anyway. So, but he wound up taking care of that as well. And look, errors happen. I had an error on my last day on the floor of the exchange. It still haunts me to this day. I worked 31 years down on the floor of the stock exchange. And, of course, you had errors, but relatively error-free. I made an error on the last day on the floor of the stock exchange. It still haunts me. But
yeah,
it's what it is. But really a great place to work. And Nate, it's obviously the energy and making money wasn't bad, but really the camaraderie that we had, working with just some of the greatest guys and some of the greatest characters that ever lived. Worked on that.
I bet, yeah.
Because you worked hard, you partied hard, you joked hard, you did everything hard. And you couldn't have a thin skin down there because there was nothing, and I mean nothing, off limits. So
you in 31 years, is there any like investment that was your big move or that you remember, or something that you got in on, or were you more just doing your job?
I just really did my job. I made a few bucks on a couple of trades, and I managed to do it smart. But I tell you what I did was really, these firms had 401k programs. Any company I had work 401k program. I always put the max in a growth fund. Because I was young at the time and we had plenty of time. I mean, it'd be different now if I was 67 and working. I'd want to be a little bit more conservative, although I'm trading like a bit of a cowboy these days anyway. But that, to me, of course, there was always opportunity to make some trades, but you always got to play it safe, especially if you're taking care of your family. And just this past, and I'm constantly trying to tell this to my kids because they don't have jobs in which, it comes out of the 401k money comes right out of thing. And I'm telling them, so I had them set up S&P index funds. So I'm trying to tell them, put $50 a weekend, whatever it is, over 25 years, 30 years, it's going to grow. And if it wasn't for that, making that investments and putting the max that I could legally, I wouldn't have had any money at all at this point. And then just recently, Lauren and I bought a condo in a 55 and over, which I was able to take some money out. And I still took a mortgage, but I was able to have that money. But because without it, we'd just be renting and going paycheck to paycheck. And what happens when the paycheck ends?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many jobs these days where it's like the gig economy, right? Where people are hustling, they're doing Uber, they're doing whatever to survive, and it's hard to do that like that on your own, to have that sort of foresight.
But a little bit, but just putting, even if it's as much as $20, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Regardless if you're making money now, where the market is now, and look, I remember working there when they gave us cigars for Dow 5,000 and hats for 10,000, Dow 10,000. Still, it's a 40,000. It's not going, it's not going back to 10,000. So
yeah,
you'll get dips and you'll get raises, but for the most part, it moves slowly up. Values of companies move slowly up.
Yeah, if you dollar cost average over time, you're going to be okay.
So I'm making a suggestion to you. Open up an S&P index fund.
Yeah, absolutely. I've actually, I've been kind of what you call like a Bitcoin maximalist the past 5 or 6 years.
I made a few bucks in that.
And I was working in this space, and I'm curious what you think about Bitcoin and crypto in general.
Look, I made some money in it. I don't truly understand it, which it makes little sense to put money in something you don't really understand. But it does seem, somebody came to me when this Bitcoin was trading at nothing, and probably 1,000. And it was one of my clients, and she said, "No, you got to do this. You got to buy this." And I'm like, "This sounds like a scam." I don't know, but just like anything, it almost feeds on itself. Now I don't know what makes this coin work. Where is it right now? It's
95,000.
95,000. Why is it 95,000? I don't know. I don't know much about it, but I invest a little bit of money. That, all right, if I lost it, fine. If I make it, fine. So at least I'm involved. But I don't really know too much about it.
Well, there's a great book, and I don't want to start like shelling Bitcoin on you, but there's a good book called the Bitcoin Standard that's worth a read. Okay. Anyone who's ever interested in Bitcoin, I tell them to check that book out, and if they find it convincing, then they go for it. If not, then to each their own. But back to like the traditional market, things are kind of crazy right now. I guess might be an understatement. Like, how are you approaching your investing in this environment?
I do follow. I have stocks that I actually it's funny. I have a couple of stocks that I made some money in, and then went too far, overinvested in it, and watched it tumble to where it is. But before this latest move, but I know how the stock trades now. I see what happens. It goes up, comes in, goes up, comes in, goes up, comes in. So now I'm just trying to trade out of a couple of bad positions where I'll make a couple of points. I'll invest money in these same stocks because I know how they trade, and now try to make a couple of points in one of these stocks, which I just did, make enough money to now take that profit and put it in that other stock, which is a lower price stock, and try to make a point or so, and then try to keep that going so I can make a few thousand here, a couple of thousand here, and try to trade out of that bad position. The original position, I don't know what's going to happen with that. It could just be too far gone. But I know at least the way it trades, I can maybe make some of that back. I have confidence.
Because you've been following it over time.
Yeah. I have confidence in the market as a whole because, like I said, I was there. When I started there, what year was that Dow? 5,000. I think it was like late 80s almost. So I was there for when the Dow was probably 2,000. I mean, it generally stays where it is. It makes a dip, makes a run. Look what happened in COVID. What I find that the experts in this game, in this field, are always fucking wrong. They're always wrong. They're always wrong. They'll always tell you the sky is falling, whatever. But I also think they have agendas as well. So I don't know if you can ever.
So maybe they're not wrong. Maybe they're more manipulating the market or playing their own hand.
Yeah. So I never. I take what I feel, and I've done this for 30 some odd years. I take what I feel and I do what I think is right. I got my financial advisor telling me, "You call this again. You call this again." I said, "I'm not good at picking individual stocks, but I know how the market moves because I went through it. If I didn't know how the market moved after 30 years, I'm a dope. I wasn't learning anything. I wasn't participating in the thing. Picking an individual stock, that's a whole nother skill set that clearly I don't have." But
what do you think is like the worst thing someone could do in this market? Because I've had not a lot of people, but some people reach out like scared, and wondering if they should sell off some of their 401k or do this or move that. And what would you say they could avoid?
How old are those people that are calling you, talking about selling the 401k?
About your age.
All right. Why sell it?
Well, I think when people see the dip, which I realize the dip they were talking about compared to like a Bitcoin dip is very minuscule.
Right.
But I think they also read a lot of the headlines. So they're seeing headlines like the recession is coming, the depression is coming, Armageddon is coming.
Right.
It's a sort of gut fear reaction.
Yeah, I think that. Look, I'm still involved with people that are active on the Florida Exchange and have their own businesses and whatever. And I'm like, you've been through the war on this thing. I've been through the crash in '86. I've been through the COVID crash. You've been through the flash crash. You've been through the housing market crash, the whole, the big short, the whole thing, 2008. You've been through all those things, and what happens? It always comes back. You just have to hang in there and be strong. Because once you sell it, you've lost. You actually have lost the money. But when that thing's sitting in your 401k and you haven't sold it, your life hasn't changed. When I was the manager at Central State in Jersey on 537, we had a fitness center there. People were coming in 2008 were coming in to quit the gym because the market was crashing and everything. They're coming in to crash because my 401k is down or whatever. I said, you're 45 years old. You're not going to start claiming. You're not going to be touching that money for another 25 years anyway. It's your financial situation is exactly the same today as it was yesterday and the day before. That has nothing to do with it. But an older person like me, once you sell it, you lost it. Especially if you took a hit on this thing and you got no chance to get it back.
I guess that's one of the benefits of being an investor on your own. You see those dips and you learn to either buy the dip or hold through the dip.
Yeah.
But a lot of people that have 401ks, they're not investors. They're not even really interested in investing. They're just trying to have a better life in their future. So when you see like I lost 30 grand today, it's like holy shit,
Right. But I was down that number. What, 4 weeks ago? It's back.
Yeah.
It's like, again, these guys, they your words were perfect. They set the world on fire and they call for Armageddon, and it may be temporary Armageddon, but it always comes back.
Yeah, and there might be a lot of people getting rich off your Armageddon too.
Exactly. And if you asked me for one suggestion, I would tell them, don't be on the sidelines. Don't have your cash on the sidelines. Have your cash in the marketplace right now, because it's going to, you pick a sector. Because look at what happened. Like Microsoft. That stock went up 60 points. I mean, I know it's a high price stock. It's a $400 stock, but it went up 60 points. That's a big move. These things that all got crushed are going to come back. And I'm not saying they're going to come back tomorrow, the next day, or whatever, or maybe. But if it's a viable, if the fundamentals of the stock, their earnings, their production, their projections for product are the same, what's the difference? If you liked it at 100, you should love it at 70.
Yeah,
it's on sale. Think about it. Think about it's a sale. It's on sale.
Yeah, absolutely. No, when Bitcoin was dropping a month or so ago, I was hoping I had more dry powder.
Right.
But
there you go.
It's also, I guess you have to realize like 90% or 95% of the people in the world aren't really investors or thinking that way.
Right.
So I also understand like the fear,
right.
that some people have.
I think about 50% of the people in the country have some sort of market involvement.
Oh, really? That's much higher than I thought. I didn't.
It's around 50%.
I thought it was more like 10%. I mean, other than 401ks.
Well, that's what I mean. They have
okay, yeah.
But
I mean, even people with 401ks, they're kind of the government's doing the investing for them, right?
Exactly. Right. Well,
so they don't. It's not really an investing mindset the same way someone who's.
No, there are companies doing the investing for. Like, say you worked for General Motors, and then General Motors has 401k. They're doing the investing for it. Likely they're putting all their money in their one stock, but also if you have a pension, the pension fund is being run by somebody, and they're investing that money anyway. So
for sure,
if you have a insurance policy, what do you think the insurance people are doing with your premiums? You're
investing.
Hold on 1 second, Nate.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello? Only reason I'm saying this is I got a very, very sick friend. And I just want to make sure. You're going to have to cut this out, I guess.
Yeah, no problem.
It's not that, thankfully, at this point. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Let's do a little pivot. So at some point, you leave the stock market, you retire from the stock market,
right.
And you become a physical trainer?
A personal trainer. So what happened was, it's 2007. Maybe 2008, early 2008. We had just had the whole housing crash, or it was in the midst of the housing crash, but also the stock exchange was changing. The chairman of the exchange, Dick Grasso, who brought a lot of product to the exchange, left. the exchange merged with a electronic platform. So it was going to become supposedly we were still going to be able to operate side by side with the electronic platform. And I knew that was bullshit. There's no way you can compete. It's like kind of like it's the John Henry story, right? You know John Henry.
Well, no, what's the John Henry story?
John Henry, he was back when they were doing building railroad tracks.
Okay.
So John Henry was the best at that, banging it down with his hammer, going through, building it on his own. And then they invented some sort of mechanical, and he raced against this thing. I don't remember if he won or lost, but his heart exploded at the end. He lost eventually to the machine. Whether he beat it or not, he lost to it. And that was what was going to happen. We were going to lose out to these machines, and that's what would happen. So in the old days, you used to be able to, if you were retiring from the exchange, you used to be able to go up on the podium, bring your family, ring the closing bell, have a little party, whatever. But guys were getting let go 10, 20, 30, 40 a day. We didn't even have time to do it. We were just going, great job and see you. But my firm, for some reason, didn't really catch on to that whole thing. So there were three of us. And my boss said, you got to let go of, he's telling me because I was the manager, let go of one of them. So I had to let go of this guy who I've stayed friends with forever. Matter of fact, he just did the inspection on my house. And my partner, I had to send him back in the booth. But I also told him at the same time, this is going to end. I don't know if it's going to end tomorrow, but it's going to end soon. I said, we got to start doing something different. You got to come up with another business idea. He opened up a pizzeria in Staten Island, which he still has to this day, 17 years. And I always coached, managed money. So I became a personal trainer. I always trained myself. So, well, not always, but most of the time I trained myself. And I was in pretty good shape. So I started training. And then I got a job at that Central State. Like I said, it was a hospital-based facility. I was working part-time. And I'm working part-time Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night, 6:30 to 11. I don't see anybody. I never saw the managers. I never saw anybody. I had a couple of clients. For the most part, I got paid $10 an hour to walk the floor, and I just, it was good being around the gym, and I got a little extra jing in, So at one point, the girl that I'm working with, again, who I'm still friendly with today, says, why don't you apply for the assistant manager job? And I said, what the hell do I know about being the assistant manager in the gym? She goes, everybody thinks you're the manager already. I said, how the hell does anybody think I'm the manager already? Because I come in, I'm dressed from work for the most part. I have my bag, and then I change. And I'm dressed from work for the exchange, so I have a nice coat on or whatever.
So you're transitioning while you're still working.
Right. So I got the assistant manager job, but now I got to be there full time. How am I going to be there full time and be on the floor of the exchange? Well, the exchange had a program at that point that you could split the seat with another partner, which I did. So me and that guy, I worked on the floor on Tuesday and Friday, and at the gym Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And he worked the other 3 days at the exchange and worked at the pizzeria the other 4 days. So we were splitting the seat. Our firm never knew. But we did that for 3 straight years. We each worked 7 days a week for 3 straight years at different jobs.
Wow. And that's just, the end is coming.
The end is coming. So in that point, I became...
Let's hold... I want to pause here for a second because I feel like it's so apropos to what's happening right now with AI.
Okay, yeah.
There's so many jobs. I mean, my job, I'm a writer. I know the end is coming. It's not clear exactly how, and it's not clear how many writers will retain their jobs. But it's pretty clear that there's a huge change coming. And I think a lot of people resist making a change How old were you when you made that change, and was it difficult? Like, did you have doubts while you're at the
I was
gym at 9 o'clock at night?
just about 50 years old.
Okay.
About 50. So I was 49 in 2007 when I got the job at Central State, and then the next year, I probably I got the manager's job just a short time after I turned 50. But for me, age has never been an issue because I'm always in a young person's field. Like right now, I'm in a young person's field. I'm the dinosaur there, but luckily, God is good, and my body's pretty good, and so that kind of gives me, like, again, what I was talking about, gives you that cred that they're going, all right. Like if I was walking around with a paunch and looking shitty, I wouldn't have much credibility. But I'm walking around looking as good as I could look at my age, and I think the same thing applies back then. I'm turning 50 and I'm becoming manager of people that are anywhere from 18 to 30, somewhere in there. And really, the truth of the matter is, the first time I ever managed women. So that was a whole nother kettle of
It's a
fish.
whole different ballgame.
That was a whole nother thing, man. Because, I was used to, it came from a very male dominated, we had 6,000 guys on the floor and probably, I don't know, 100 women, 200 women, on the floor of the exchange. And, we never thought about the kids at home or the kids, oh, the kid's sick, I can't come to work. None of that stuff happened with us. But now I'm the manager of women, and, my kid's sick, I can't come into work today, or, I'm not feeling well, I got to leave. None of that stuff happened down on the floor of the exchange. And I had to, I get a hold of myself and really just change my whole thinking on that whole subject. And
Yeah, no more of that old school attitude
right.
in the workplace.
I think I became a better person for it. Really, I wound up speaking at that young lady that made the suggestion. The young lady made the suggestion that I become the manager. I wound up speaking at her wedding. Another girl that I had managed, she wound up naming her kid after me. So, clearly I must have been doing something right. Again, still don't know what the hell I'm doing right, but I'm doing it, But good.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I mean, making the transition was difficult in that I was so overwhelmed with how much I really had to do. I mean, I had to build this business in the gym, but also keep the business alive at the exchange, because we were getting paid still, but we were also getting our benefits and such. So it was a tough gig, and of course they never found out what we were doing. So keeping it secret for 3 years also was not an easy task as well. But in the meantime,
did you get laid off eventually, or did you?
Eventually, we got laid off. Yeah. Wow. Not because of us, but just because it was tight. The business was not flowing. We weren't getting the business from them, so it wasn't anything that we did. We didn't get caught, or we didn't have an error, And really, we still did the job. So it wasn't like we weren't doing the job. So we still
you weren't playing hooky completely.
Right. But they when I let go of that guy, they cut our salaries in half. But not only did they cut our salaries in half, we were doing independent business. So I was doing business for all the major firms on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. First Boston, Pershing, Donaldson, everybody. But that business all went away because it all went into the handheld. It all went into the electronics. So that business all went away. So we went from here to there.
Yeah, well, I think you went through something, 15 years ago or so, that a lot of people today are terrified about, and I think rightly so, for a lot of gigs out there, for a lot of jobs. So that was your thinking, like, I'm gonna do something that's very human that's like can't be taken away from you by the machine?
I never really thought like that. I always just kind of plunged myself headlong into doing something, and it was a natural fit for me. I had been a coach for most of my adult life. I started coaching basketball when I was early 20s, and now I'm 50. And we coached Millstone, and I coached a couple of AAU teams and whatever. And so it was an easy transition. I love physical fitness. I was physically fit myself, but I also have a way of talking to people that they get it, and that is really what personal training is. Remember, you're training people that, for the most part, are not they know what they're doing. They're people that don't maybe know what they're doing, or don't have the motivation to do it, or they need an appointment to get to the gym, or they just need somebody to talk to, or whatever. Right now, I have a couple of Parkinson's people. I train like 4 Parkinson's people. I have a couple of autistic kids. With the Parkinson's people, they're elderly at this point, and they are actually, I'm actually spending some of my hour with them, taking stuff out to the garbage for them, and helping them out on the internet and stuff like that. So it's become more of a, almost like a home health aide at that point.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. Some of them can't really move. I got one guy that's in bed. I basically, I'm there for 20 minutes. I can't really do a whole lot with him. And he says Parkinson's dementia anyway, so it's like literally do the same thing every day. But
But I'd imagine my wife has a couple clients one client that has Parkinson's, and
yeah, I love to talk to her about it.
yeah, I hope one day we could come out and hang with you and you get to meet her. But I've seen like the work she's done with him, and a lot of it's physical, but a lot of it's also psychological,
Right.
and helping him with whatever she can. And I've also seen how like beautiful that is, and how important for him it is to have someone helping. Do you work with a lot of older clients?
I do
And
train. I do have a lot of older clients. But really, let me get back for 1 second. I was training my brain injury client today. She's 31. She was actually an athlete. She was at a softball pitcher at St. John Vianney, and then she was headed to UPenn. And actually, believe it or not, got hurt training with a trainer, not me. But so she never really pitched in college. But she was skiing on the bunny slope. It was her first time on a ski slope, and somebody who's probably also their first time on a ski slope kind of ran her off the ski, because you can't control yourself. I bet you to this day this guy or gal has no idea what happened. She
Wow.
she got run off the slope and hit the snowmaking equipment. So it's 8 years ago, and she wanted to get strong again, so I've been strength training her. But remember, in training, there's always a neuromuscular adaptation, right? In that first 1 to 3 months, there's some sort of adaptation that all of a sudden you just get better at doing the exercises. You get it, and that's how you get stronger. You're really not stronger, but you know how to do the exercises, so it becomes easier for you. Well, we've been training together for a year, and I tried to explain to her, since you're not getting stronger, I tried to explain to her that neuromuscular adaptation could take a year. Who knows? But she is starting to make gains now, and she's starting to do things. It's starting to happen. It makes me cry. I'm crying because it's so, to use your words, how beautiful it is to see that these people, what they get out of it, and that I could be part of that journey. Mm-hmm. I'm just, as I say with all my clients, I'm just the Wizard of Oz, really. And the Wizard of Oz did nothing. He didn't give them anything they didn't already have, but he helped them find it. And I think that's really all I do. I can't give you anything you don't have, help you find it, keep you motivated, keep you coming, it'll happen for you. You know, and that's but your wife is doing beautiful work, because that I know what she's going through, and you can tell her so.
Oh well, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
What do you think the importance is of older people working out?
100%. They got to. You know, as you know, Nate, I'm a hustler. I love to work. So, you know, I still drive. Well, up until last year, I was driving Uber, but now I just take people to the airport and whatever. Just use my car for that. But I also work at a catering hall. So, and I do the door. So, guess what I'm doing? I stand in the lobby, kibitz, talk. That's what I do. You know, that's my skill set, right? So, now remember, I work as I explained, a gym that there's serious lifters in this gym, right? People that are fit and they're strong, whatever. So really, my life is surrounded by that. And of course, then I have my clients that I understand where they're at in their lives, and they're older and whatever. But then I work at the catering hall, and you see people get out of the car. Everybody gets out of the car, and they are walking with a walker, walking with a cane. I saw a couple of guys last week. You know, they were father and son, both way too heavy. One guy was like 70, the other guy was probably 50, walking out with a cane, both walking with a cane in their left hand. I'm like, I was trying to say to the younger guy, and I'm not saying it to him, but I'm saying to myself, didn't you see this coming? Didn't you see this coming? This is what it's about. You have to stay ahead of this game. It's never too late, though. It is never too late. One of the trainers that used to work for me, he was trying to become a PT, trying to become a physical therapist, and he always said that everybody should be required to do one round of physical therapy with the physical therapist to visit these people that need physical therapy to like maybe get like almost a scared straight program, because you need to stay strong for yourself, for your family. Like my Parkinson's lady that I trained, I have her doing stuff that people are amazed. I have her doing bear crawls. She's 81 years old.
Doing what?
81 years old. I have her doing bear crawls. So she's basically not on her hands and knees. So she's off her knees and arms crawling. You know, because I want her to be able to, if she gets stuck at one end of the room after she falls, she needs to get to the other side of the room. Mm-hmm. I have her doing all kinds of leg work, lateral lunges, forward lunges, walking lunges, reverse lunges. And I said, and we were doing it one day, lateral lunge, and I said, you know why you're doing this? And she said, because you asked me to. I said, well, that's part of it. But the other reason is because I want you to be able to move quickly in case you fall so you can catch yourself, right? So if you fall laterally, you can stick your leg out, forward, whatever. So now, as I said before, I'm helping her it's bulk pickup day, and I'm emptying shit from her house, and she's following me down the thing, and she comes start walking, and she trips, and she's falling forward. And what does she do? She sticks her leg out like a lunge, catches herself, and saves herself the fall at 81 years old. So
81 years old.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
That's why you need to train. And I have them doing, moving as fast as possibly they can. I do kettlebell swings. We'll do ball slams. I want them to be able to move quickly, because guess what? They're great at going slow. Just follow one around. They're great at going slow. You got to get them to move quickly to protect themselves against the fall or an oncoming car or something that's in their way. But you know, these are the things that way they train. And also, if you keep their legs strong, they can walk. And the other thing, a little disgusting, but if you can keep their range of motion into a squat pattern, it'll help their digestive system, because that's the way the body is designed.
What do you mean by in a squat pattern?
A squat pattern. So, like, think about a child that you see, and they're always squatted down, right? Like their butts, they're on their feet, but their butts on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So they're squatting deep,
yeah,
right? Because they can do it. And really, people don't squat anymore because they stopped doing it. They're not a child anymore. So you need to, you know, even if you hold a kettlebell in front and squat. Or even if it's a sit to stand, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, without using your hands. Using a assistance, using a TRX to assist you into a squat pattern. You need to keep that movement where you can basically get your butt to the ground.
Yeah, that range of motion, right? We
Yes.
lose our range of motion because
Right.
there's so much stuff we just don't do in life.
Exactly. And the way the body is designed to excrete, that is the best way to excrete, right?
I've heard.
Well, think about, they dig holes in China or wherever in the Asia, right? There's a hole.
But don't they have the little stools you can put in front of your toilet, and so you get your legs up?
Yeah, exactly. But again, look at that movement. So you want to try to do it as free as you possibly can, but also you need to get something off the ground. It's okay to squat down versus bending over and getting your whole back involved with that. But I still deadlift with them too, like a 35-pound kettlebell.
What are you benching these days, Pete?
Me, I don't know. I actually started using a lot of machines because I use a different technique these days for myself, because I have discovered that really recovery is really key, to what I do. And I want to lift heavy all the time. So with your normal everyday mortal human clients, they're not going to be able to get to that ultimate failure point. So I want to train one set to failure as much as I can with the heaviest weight I can in a rep range. This way I don't have to turn it on. Like, this light is on, it's already turned on. I don't need to turn it on again. I don't need to keep flicking that switch. It's already on for that day. Your body, I sent my body a signal to adapt, grow and adapt. But it's got to recover first. So you're out of the gym for a while. But with your normal clients, you need to do 3 sets, 4 sets, X. Because if I tell some people, all right, I need 10 to 12 here, they'll do 10. I know the people that'll just do 10. And I try to explain to them, there's no magic in the number. There's no magic in 10. The number is really for me. If I want you to do 10 to 12, and you do 12, and I see that you did that with ease, I know what I have to do. I need to raise that weight.
Yeah, what you want is them kind of reaching their limit around between 8 and 10.
Yeah, 8 and 10, 10 to 12, whatever I decide I'm going to do. But, also I put this in for myself because I don't have the time, because I'm busy with clients. I don't have the time to actually train myself on a daily basis anyway. So if I can train every other day, every third day, I know I've reached that point, and I keep good records. So if I had, whatever, 200 pounds on this, so for chest exam, you asked me about benching, but for chest, I'll use the pec deck, and I will hit a low seat, high hands, as many reps as I possibly can. And I may even do a rest pause, like I may wait 10 seconds and try to do a couple more reps. So I may hold it as much as I can. And then I already have a incline machine bench set up, and I'll go right from there to there. And I'll push 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever I can push out of that. And that'll be it. So, and I'll keep.
So you're trying to get your heart rate up. You're also trying to the
heart rate's gonna
break down your muscles.
Right. I'm trying to do more than I did the last time. So I set a rep range. Let's just say, 220 pounds on the pec deck, and that range is 6 to 10. If I get 11, that weight's going up next time. On the incline bench, I'm only looking to get 3 to 4 reps there. But if I get 2 reps, the next week I come back, I've raised the weight with the pec deck, but I won't raise the weight here. I need to get 3. So just more, one more, a little bit more.
And are you taking notes every time you're at the gym? Are you? Yeah.
I keep notes for myself and for my clients, everybody. I want to make sure that they make progression, because progression is really the secret. If you go around to your local gym and follow a couple of guys around, I guarantee you they're doing the same weight, the same exercise all the time, and nothing's happening. You know,
Uh,
yeah.
are there any like new trends in the fitness world, or anything interesting happening that you're following, or?
Our gym actually has something called the High Rocks program, but it's like it's a it's sort of like CrossFit in the sense that it's a brand and they have certain methodology of doing things, and then there's competitions involved. So our gym, you know, bought into that brand, I guess, and we have a lot of people training for those events come to our gym, and they do these classes, which are basically the competition.
High
Yeah.
Rocks, it's called.
HYROX, yeah. So it's
Interesting.
HYROX.
Mm.
And so I'd say that's really where we're at right now in terms of that. But you know, the truth of the matter is, weightlifting is pretty simple. It's progression, as I said. It's one more rep the next time, 5 more pounds the next time. That's progression, you know. And then and of course we all reach limit strength at some point. You can swap the exercise out.
We don't all reach limit strength.
Well, you reach limit
I think
strength.
most of us don't ever reach limit
Right, you
strength.
might be right. But the truth of the matter is, and people hate to hear me say this, but let's just say you trained on Monday and you came back on Thursday and you weren't as successful. Of course, you're doing splits, but just say it's the same exercise, whatever, for sake of talking. Monday to Thursday, and you weren't able to beat Monday. What do? The truth of the matter is, you need to rest more.
Mm.
You need to rest more. You will not decompensate as fast as you think. With rest, you'll be stronger. Like today, I haven't did this particular workout I've done for probably, I don't know, a week. And I was a lot stronger than I would if I would have came back in 3 days. Why was I stronger? Because I recovered.
Rest and recovery.
I recovered.
Yeah.
And you can certainly grow. There's a lot. I know the whole Arnold thing was like 6 times. And I did it myself for years on top of years, beat the shit out of myself. You know, I'm doing 3 sets. I'm doing 4 sets. I can't remember if I did 3 or 4. Fuck it, I'll do another one. And it's 4 exercises for every body part, and I'm doing 2 body parts in the night and beating the shit out of myself. Because it's like when you train, you're digging a hole into recovery, right? So that's what you're breaking yourself down. You're digging a hole into recovery. The only way you grow is if that hole gets filled up and overfilled. So if that hole starts to fill up and you come back to train before you've recovered, you're just digging a deeper hole into that recovery.
Mm.
And I think for somebody of my age and somebody that's as experienced as me, you don't need to do that much anymore. I'd love to have, but it's a hard sell to get a new trainee and say, we're going to do 1 set. And you're going to go home. It's a hard concept to sell. But to tell you the truth, though, what's the best place to start? 1. Where else would you start? You start at 20? What happens if 20 doesn't work? You go to 21? Do you go to 19? You start at 1. Is it working? Okay, not really working. We can go to 2. Let's see how that works out for a while. And that's progression as well. So
yeah, I guess getting people to develop consistency, right?
Yeah,
to develop a habit of.
It's also mindset. You got to be able to take yourself to where you physically cannot move the weight. And a lot of people, most people don't have that to do that.
Mm.
Like I said, I know my clients. I'll tell them 10 or 12. Oh, yeah, well, I could have got, how many more could you have gotten? 1 or 2. I said, well, it's not exactly max, right? We're looking to get as much as we can out of it. Safely, obviously. Safety is the most thing. But most of the people I train are with GPP, General Physical Preparedness, right? So it's a little bit of strength training, it's a little bit of weight loss, weight stabilization, a little bit of flexibility, a little bit of cardiovascular, and people are happy with that. And that's what we're
Yeah.
going to do. So I never let perfect become the enemy of the good. And it's not my goal; it's their goal. Whatever their goal is, I can't. I know what my goal is. I work and I program myself toward that. But they got to tell me what their goal is. I got to help them figure out what their goal is. So that's kind of what it comes down to.
Absolutely. All right, I got one more question for you.
Okay.
And this isn't a political question at all,
Okay.
but
You know, I'll be honest.
like there's a new movement, right? The Make America Healthy movement,
Yeah.
or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
Make America Healthy Again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we could both agree that America is really unhealthy, right? That the
100%.
levels of obesity,
100%.
we've been unhealthy and getting unhealthier for a while. I guess, what do you think like we could do as a country to become healthier? And then maybe to close, just like a few tips for someone who's maybe struggling with their health, struggling with exercise, something they could do just to get the ball rolling.
Well, I mean, a lot of that's the same answer to a lot of it is, the simplest thing you can do, if possible, is to get out and just walk. And as far as the country goes and what the Make America Healthy Again movement is trying to do, look, we got crap in our food, and you've been all over the world, right? On your book, right? You've been all over the world. You've eaten the food all over the world. Now, I've only been to Italy once, but I also have heard that in other parts of the world, the food is just fresh and just you feel better, and you're eating and you're not really worried about it. But the food that we eat has way too many hormones in it. There's way too many dyes in it. It's not natural food. So like once a year after the Super Bowl, we all go on the elimination diet, we call it, right? So no alcohol, no caffeine, no processed food, no white flour, no added sugar, and no dairy, right? So 6 things. And, my
No,
wife,
that's almost like a keto diet, but
no, because you can eat,
you
we have rice, you have
okay.
potatoes, so it's like, I did a video one time. I wish I could find it. I probably showed it to you. I have a whole, people always ask, well, what the hell can you eat on this thing? If it's no, 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 no. And I filled up a table of stuff that you could fill it. I did have a bottle of bourbon stuck in there. That had to come out. That had to come out. But even still, inside that healthy food that you can eat, it's still loaded with crap. The chicken's still loaded with hormones, and the nuts are still, the fruit is still sprayed with pesticides, and the fruit is still dyed to make it look like an orange, and dyed yellow to make it look like a lemon, and waxed. The apples are waxed, and so this, even healthy as it might be, we can't get to that point of, or we're not at that point, I should say. I should never say can't. Of true health in our diet, because really it's all about what we put in our bodies at all times. So if we can do a better job of that, but I think as far as and I don't mind and I know say I think questioning the science sometimes is a good thing. I think that's what it's all about. I mean, because we'd be the same. I think the only science you can't question is physics. I don't think anything's ever changed in that in a million years, but.
Well, especially if you're talking about questioning the food industry, right? Because
exactly.
it's pretty clear to all of us that what they're giving us is bullshit.
It's crap. Yeah. So how's the food? Well, before I answer the final question, how's the food in Mexico?
It's phenomenal, and
Yeah.
in every neighborhood there's a market that's just overflowing with all the vegetables and fruit and nuts and
That they grow
you could possibly
right?
find.
That they grow.
It comes from outside of the city. But what is also different is like the restaurants. In Mexico, you have all these little mom and pops places that open up, and they're just cooking you like a home cooked meal.
Right.
And they might have 8 things on the menu, and that's all they have. And it's affordable, so you'll be eating alongside people that are teachers and cops, and
Right.
the whole spectrum of society is eating the same $4 meal. But there's not all these chains. There's not like a TGI Fridays and a McDonald's. There's a myriad of small restaurants where the people who are running them will never become rich, where the goal is not to become rich.
Right.
The goal is to make good food and give it to people. So like the entire culture of food is different here.
Right. All right. Well, that makes sense, because that's really my point. Is that we're for some reason the greatest country in the world, the most powerful country in the world, has acquiesced and succumbed to giving our people crap, and that's why we're unhealthy. Look at the medical situation is a mess. This can't, like I just said, my friend, is who knows what the situation is there. But I feel like outside of this country, it's at least that they have that going for them, where at least the stuff that they're putting in their bodies is at least safe. And I don't believe a lot of the stuff that we put in our bodies is safe. But guess what? We have no choice at this point. This is what we got. And if we don't eat it, you're not eating, But as far as exercise go, people that are struggling with exercise, I think you need to do, if you can, minimally what you can do. Now, I take, for example, walking. I'm coming up on 3 straight years of walking in the AM before I go to work or before I start my day. Every day, no miss. Rain, sleet, sick, broke my toe, quadriceps tendonitis, everything. Maybe a little hungover every once in a while. But make sure I just get out and walk 12, 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. It just makes a huge difference in the way you approach your day. Because there were times I didn't do that, right? I got up, had my coffee, whatever, went to work, and I worked out during the day. I moved equipment around. That walk in the morning really sets my day off to a good start, and I'll get 2,000 steps in on an average on that short walk in the morning, and just the act of walking for people is difficult, but over time that act of walking could add balance to their step. You'll see, it's funny. It's got this freaking Apple Watch. It tells me too much sometimes, but it talks about amount of time on one foot. In other words, it's tracking the length of your step and what the percentage of time you're on one foot. And the lower that percentage means is that your balance is improving, because you can take a longer stride. Because if you notice, and your wife would probably, what's her name, by the way?
Maribel.
Maribel, okay. You ask her, the Parkinson's people shuffle. Their balances, right? So I always try to get them to take long, confident steps, because that will improve their balance over time. So just a simple act of walking will improve your balance, if you can. But minimally, let's say you can't walk. There's always something that you can do. You can do chair exercises, just moving, staying moving. And it's trying to do as much physical activity as you can throughout the day. Like I said, I work at the catering hall, and you ask them and they ask you where the restroom is, and you tell them it's here, and they're going, "Oh, such a long walk," or "This is crowded. This bathroom's crowded, but we do have bathrooms downstairs." The looks on people's faces, like I have to climb down a flight of stairs and then climb back up. I'd rather wait 15 minutes to take a leak than to climb down a flight of stairs. And you're like, I don't believe it. What's happened to this world, man? I'm lifting outside of my workout, which I told you I don't work out as often as I used to. I'm lifting heavy stuff all day long, plates. I'm lifting 45-pound plates all day long. I don't even think about it anymore, but I'm thinking how many people that I know would ever be able to lift something 45 pounds. So it's about staying as active as you can. It doesn't have to be that, but the simple act of walking also, at this point, it just makes me feel better that I did it, and I did it again. I did it again. And you mentioned it before about consistency, and that's really what the object of this thing is. If you can stay consistent and not miss, you'll get health benefits from it. You get the 2,000 step. It's good weight control. And people that are looking to lose weight, I always say the last thing I want them to do is really exercise, go crazy exercising, because a lot of things could happen. Injury could happen. They can get discouraged. Controlling the portion control and walking. Walking is one of the greatest low intensity exercises you can do. And that low intensity, you can actually utilize fat for energy. If you're in the medium range, heart range, or a high heart range, you're not able to metabolize that fat for energy as fast as you can with that low intensity exercise. That's why sleeping is the best exercise you can do.
How so?
Well, you're not eating, number one, but also your body at rest needs to burn fuel to stay alive. You have a BMR, basal metabolic rate. So my basal metabolic rate is like, let's say 1,600 calories. I would need 15 to 16 if I just laid in bed all day. Based on my current fitness level and what I do, if I just laid in bed all day, I would need 1,500 to 1,700 calories just to stay
where you're at.
Where I'm at. So your body requires energy to stay alive. So if you're sleeping, it's going to start utilizing that fat for energy. Just like walking is very low intensity. I'm not saying go out and sprint walk. I'm saying just like casual walk. As you get better at it, you'll move a little bit more. But one thing that seniors do, because I'm now living in a senior community, they get out and walk. They get out and walk. Whereas when I was living in my other neighborhood, I didn't see as many people walking. But here, I see people walking. Maybe it's out of boredom. Maybe it's out of boredom, but
I like it though. I like the idea, especially getting up and walking in the morning first thing.
And sometimes I forget.
Because a lot of us, what we do, we get up and we check our phone.
Yeah.
We read the news, and within a half an hour, you're angry, you're frustrated. It's a horrible way to start the day, and I'm guilty of doing it pretty frequently. So just getting up and getting out first thing.
Try it for a week. Put something in your stomach. All good. Put your clothes on, go outside, walk for 15 minutes, come back. Try it for a week. And don't forget, a lot of times I'm in work at 5 o'clock in the morning, so I'm up at 3. I'll eat, shower, and I'll go out, and I'm probably out walking right around 3:45, 4 o'clock.
Wow.
I'm out there with the foxes.
Out there with the foxes. I love it, Pete. We'll close on that. Hey, it's great talking to you.
Great talking to you. Listen, say hello to your parents for me, all right?
I will. And tell your family I said hello as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Good seeing you. Stay in touch with me, please.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you, brother.
Bye.